General Hospital spoilers tease that Rick is methodically pushing Carly and Michael into a new level of psychological chaos, where every action, every word, even the smallest gesture can be dissected, distorted, and used against them in an increasingly brutal legal battle that seems more about destruction than justice. The tactics Rick employs go beyond legal strategy. They are a full-on psychological assault. He doesn't need to shout or issue direct threats, just a glance, a well-timed question, or a loaded silence in the courtroom is enough to make Carly feel cornered and helpless. Rick knows exactly how to exploit his opponent's weaknesses, and to him, Carly is the most fragile target, an emotionally driven mother who easily loses control when pushed to the edge. Michael, who walked into the courtroom believing that justice would be on his side, now finds himself being dragged into a maze of doubt and counterattacks. He struggles to stay calm, trying to present himself as the ideal father in control of the situation. But the tighter he holds his emotions, the deeper he sinks into a suffocating pressure. Rick makes Michael question himself, with pointed questions that force him to reconsider his past decisions, his relationship with Willow, and his absence during critical moments in Wiley and Amelia's lives. These aren't just legal inquiries, they're like needles repeatedly piercing the softest spots in a man desperate to protect his family. However, it is Carly who holds the power to either turn the tide, or trigger a collapse. Her blunt nature and occasional lack of restraint make her an easy target but a difficult one to control. Rick knows that if he can push Carly just enough, she will explode. And in that moment, she may accidentally reveal the most devastating secret she's been hiding, that Nina was the one who drugged Drew in the scandal that rocked the entire town. If that slips out in court, not as a formal accusation with solid evidence, but as an emotional outburst, Rick will seize it like a weapon, flipping the narrative instantly. He'll make Carly answer for a series of chain reactions. Why didn't she report it? What is she hiding? Is she complicit? And just like that, from accuser, Carly becomes the accused. From a mother seeking justice, she turns into a discredited witness. Worse yet, if that statement is used as evidence, Nina will be thrust into the eye of the storm. And Willow will begin to question how many people around her are hiding secrets. Was Drew truly a victim, or did he stay silent to protect Nina? How long has Carly known? What else is being concealed? These questions will once again leave Willow feeling alone and lost, as if she's standing in a fog-filled field where even those she loves most are holding daggers behind their backs. Meanwhile, Rick, like a calm predator, won't attack right away. He'll let Carly panic, let Michael fall apart, and let Nina drown in the fear that the bigger truth has yet to be revealed. Rick doesn't need to win with facts, only with chaos. And that's exactly what's happening. Everything is becoming more fragile than ever. Trust is eroding. Alliances are fracturing. Each key character is starting to turn against the others in doubt and fear. If Carly reveals the truth about Nina, it won't just be a courtroom shock, it will trigger a domino effect that could unravel everything Carly has tried to protect. No one is safe. No words are harmless. Every sentence, every move is now a double-edged sword. And Carly, despite trying to stay strong, is haunted by the vision of losing everything, custody of her grandchildren, Michael, Willow's trust, and even control over the life she once believed she had mastered. Rick knows this. And he's waiting, not for an attack, but for that one moment when Carly lets emotion override reason. Because when that happens, Rick won't need to do much. He'll simply stand by and watch as Carly's world collapses under the weight of her own words. One word, 1 second. One mistake, and it could all be over. Carly is playing a game of chess few can see in full. While the public, the media, and even those closest to her believe she's still struggling alone amid waves of hate, hostility, and legal pressure. The truth is, she's already made a move that could completely change the course of the custody battle over Wiley and Amelia. She brought Portia into the fold. Not through pressure. Not through emotional appeal. But with a promise, a specific, deep, and significant guarantee that would shake even someone like Portia. This alliance between Carly and Portia doesn't come from friendship, nor is it built on trust. They're not two women sharing wine or chatting about life in a peaceful garden. This bond is forged from calculation and a shared sense of danger closing in. Carly knows Portia is facing her own turmoil, caught between family obligations, reputational strain, and the delicate balance within the medical community. She understands Portia is pragmatic and wouldn't pick a side without a compelling reason. Carly gave her that reason. What Carly offered wasn't just an assurance, it was a path. A way for Portia to strengthen her position in the community while staying clear of the political chaos spreading through the hospital and city hall. With her influence in the media, connections to powerful figures, and mastery in public opinion, Carly could help Portia gain tangible professional benefits. But the price is aligning with Carly, which means going head-to-head with Nina, a woman now bolstered by public sympathy as a devoted grandmother and a mother seeking redemption. Beneath these strategic maneuvers burns Carly's long-standing grudge against Nina. Carly has never forgiven her, for the times Sonny was missing and Nina kept him from everyone. For Nina's manipulation of Willow's trust, and for her attempts to claim Wiley and now Amelia. Carly sees those actions not as mistakes but as calculated threats to the family structure she fought to maintain through endless storms. Yet, involving Portia marks a new chapter, and a subtle warning of impending disaster. If Carly is willing to trade real benefits to someone previously uninvolved, it's clear she's no longer acting on belief or emotion, but through risky political calculation. It proves she's entering the darkest phase of this battle, willing to control, manipulate, give or take anything, just to shield those children from Nina's reach. This alliance may work in the short term, but in the long run, it's a ticking time bomb. Portia, with her moral principles and pride as a doctor, may not withstand the pressure once she realizes she's part of a multi-layered scheme and merely a pawn in someone else's game. The moment Portia doubts, or when someone like Rick, Nina, or even Willow uncovers this hidden deal, it could all fall apart overnight. If that happens, Carly not only loses strategic support but also risks being accused of witness tampering. Meanwhile, Nina isn't staying silent. She's watching quietly, waiting. Though wounded by Carly's attacks, especially the truth about Drew being drugged, Nina maintains her calm defense. But if Carly crosses the line, Nina could flip the board using cards she has yet to play. Nina knows what Carly is hiding. She knows Willow's, Michael's, and even Drew's vulnerabilities. And with one small misstep from Carly, Nina could turn vengeance into legitimacy. In short, Carly's decision to involve Portia proves one thing: the battleground is no longer just the courtroom, it's everywhere: media, medicine, family, and reputation. This isn't about who's the better grandmother or the more justified mother anymore. This is a war to control the future of two children, a battle for power and trust in a town where everyone has secrets. And if Carly loses, it won't just be personal failure, it will be a catastrophe that destroys everything she's spent her life trying to protect. The story in Port Charles is entering an unprecedented phase, where every alliance is fragile, every calculation a potential double-edged sword, and every secret, once exposed, carries the power to ignite an unforeseeable disaster. One of the most significant recent developments, the decision to place Portia into the Witness Protection Program, has sent shockwaves through the town's political and legal backstage. No longer just a doctor or a peripheral figure, Portia is now a key link in a far-reaching conspiracy, with the most powerful players recalibrating their strategies around her testimony, her presence, and her silence. This shift was no coincidence. It resulted from a series of overlapping events, and especially one of Carly's boldest, most reckless maneuvers, dragging Portia into the power game to manipulate the legal balance between herself and Nina. But the fact that Portia now needs protection is a sign that things have spiraled out of control. Someone has caught the scent of the truth. Someone, maybe Rick, maybe Nina, maybe both, is getting dangerously close to uncovering what Carly, Drew, and Portia have been quietly setting up behind the scenes. And when someone like Portia must be placed under federal protection, it means what she knows isn't just dangerous, it could bring down the entire system. Meanwhile, a storm is brewing between Drew and Nina. There was a time when Drew believed Nina was merely a conflicted, pitiable, and vulnerable woman. But now, after learning what she did, drugging him, orchestrating a twisted play with Jacinda, and manipulating the truth for her own gain, Drew can no longer keep his composure. The tension between them has surpassed verbal confrontations. It's turned into a cold war, piercing glares, veiled threats, and destruction in every undertone. Nina, with her survival instincts and hard-earned experience, isn't backing down. She knows Drew won't stop unless he completely destroys the image she's trying to protect. But what truly keeps her awake at night isn't just Drew, it's the fact that Portia, once believed to be a silent ally, has now become Carly's trump card. This betrayal is not only personal, it puts Nina at risk of prosecution, of public disgrace, and most painfully, of being pushed out of Amelia and Wiley's lives, something she simply cannot accept. And at the center of it all, there's Rick. Rick is now confronting an onslaught of challenges like never before. He thought he had control, believed that with his legal sharpness, underground alliances, and psychological traps, he could corner Carly and Michael, expose Nina at just the right time, and secure victory for his client, or himself. But he didn't anticipate Drew becoming this reckless, or Carly being bold enough to pull someone like Portia into the fray. What Rick now sees is a battlefield in chaos, Drew and Nina on the verge of explosion, Carly wielding a protected witness who could dismantle his entire chain of evidence. And Portia, once neutral, now a federally protected asset, holding truths dangerous enough to make her a target or a pawn in a war she never asked to fight. The landscape is shifting in unimaginable ways. A new kind of transformation is unfolding, haunted by a chilling realization. Truth is no longer a tool to resolve problems, it's something that can destroy careers, relationships, and lives. Rick is being pushed to the edge of disorientation, where the legal instruments he once wielded with mastery are rendered useless against emotional alliances, buried secrets, and people with nothing left to lose. Every character is no longer just trying to survive, they're playing a deadly game. On one side, those willing to throw each other into witness protection, unleash evidence in court, and betray each other over custody battles. On the other, those clutching dark truths, ready to burn everything down if it means salvaging reputation, power, or pride. And when every calculation leads to the same outcome, ruin, the only certainty left is catastrophe. A catastrophe that is brewing, waiting for the right moment to erupt. And no one, not Carly, not Nina, not Drew, not Rick, not even Portia, will walk away untouched. Rick now stands on the precipice between pride and collapse, where everything he once believed in, control, logic, and the rule of law, is cracking under the weight of new obsessions. Once the master manipulator of the courtroom, cool and precise, Rick is now forced to face a shocking reality: he is losing. Not for lack of evidence or weak arguments, but because the world around him is changing in such deranged ways that every traditional tactic is rendered meaningless. What makes this defeat more bitter is Rick's awareness: he's not losing a fair debate or a righteous case, he's being undone by a storm of emotional alliances, unpredictable moves, and people he once dismissed: Carly, Drew, Portia. He is being overtaken by those acting with their hearts, their fears, and their hatred, forces Rick always thought the law could overpower. But law is no longer the ultimate weapon in this war. Here, pain and obsession now drive every decision, and that's a battlefield Rick can't control. Portia's abrupt placement into witness protection is the clearest sign of the madness now unfolding. A doctor, originally an outsider, has become the center of truth, the fulcrum upon which survival balances for both sides. Rick knows this is not just a surprise tactic, it's a direct blow to the structure he's so carefully assembled. A protected witness like Portia means Rick cannot reach her, cannot pressure her, and cannot steer the course of her testimony. And when truth is no longer in his grasp, Rick realizes he is entering a battleground where lawyers are no longer the ones in control. His greatest fear isn't the personal loss, it's the realization that he's losing control of himself. The man who once prided himself on separating emotion from strategy is now surrounded by emotional wreckage from every direction. Drew is hitting back with psychological warfare. Carly is always one step ahead in orchestrated chaos, and Nina, once the unstable variable, is now a wild card capable of blowing up the entire board if she strikes back. The pace and depth of change are too overwhelming for Rick to adapt using old methods. He is no longer steering the ship, he's flailing to stay afloat. And in those rare moments of clarity, Rick is beginning to see the most terrifying truth: he is accepting defeat. Not through words or declarations, but through the absence of a clear counterattack. His rebuttals are slowing. He's doubting his own tactics. He's hesitating over choices he would have made in a heartbeat before. These are not signs of caution, they are the symptoms of someone losing faith in his ability to win. And when a lawyer begins to doubt himself, the outcome is nearly sealed. The entire system is shifting beneath his feet, no one remains where they once stood, no alliance holds to its original promise, and everything is being restructured by emotion, hatred, and unspoken trauma. Rick once believed logic would win, but logic is now irrelevant in a world splintered by grief and betrayal. And that's the most terrifying change of all, the collapse of the entire frame of reference. Rick is no longer the lead player, he's just a man standing back, watching everything fall apart. Unable to do anything but accept. Accept the loss. Accept that everything has changed. Accept that the truth, once the sharpest weapon of justice, is now bent by emotion, twisted by pain. And buried beneath obsessions even Rick is afraid to confront. In that world, all he can do is wait. Wait for the storm to pass. Or wait to be swept away by the hurricane he can no longer resist. The revelation of Nina's crime has unleashed a violent storm across Port Charles, a town already too familiar with secrets, counterattacks, and long-standing battles between powerful families. But this time, the shock isn't just another legal incident or media scandal. It's a direct strike to the emotional core, trust, and very humanity of characters caught in the most fragile of moral choices. Nina, who had tried to rebuild her image with gestures of redemption, has completely collapsed in the eyes of the public, and those closest to her. Not because of a misspoken word, but because of an unforgivable act, she drugged Drew. Not impulsively, but deliberately. With careful planning, all for her own ends. It's irrefutable evidence that she never stopped manipulating the truth to get what she wanted. This isn't the first time Nina has tried to control others from the shadows. But this time, she targeted someone who wasn't just her daughter's friend, but the stepfather of her grandchildren. A man who had repeatedly tried to bridge the gap between her and the Corinthos family. Nina's actions weren't just betrayal, they were self-destruction. And when the truth came out, the dominoes fell fast. Willow, torn between her love for Nina and loyalty to Carly, reached her breaking point. She could no longer excuse Nina's behavior. The betrayal didn't just pierce her trust, it forced her to question everything she believed in. Motherhood, redemption, the hope of a united family, all turned to dust. She felt betrayed in the deepest sense, and it drove her to pull back, not only from Nina, but from anyone involved. She began withdrawing from Drew, doubting Carly, and feeling uncertain around Michael, people she'd once trusted to help her choose between truth and compassion. As for Drew, this was no longer a legal matter he could coldly manage through procedure. It was an attack on his body, his dignity, and his role in the lives of those he loved. He felt deeply violated, not just by Nina's actions, but by the silence of those who knew and said nothing. Chief among them, Carly, the woman he trusted most. Her silence became yet another spark igniting buried tensions. Drew felt isolated, used, and, above all, betrayed by those who should have protected him. Michael, standing amidst the wreckage, was pushed into a role no one wants: father, husband, son, and heir to a legacy of mistakes. He couldn't turn his back on Willow, but he couldn't accept Nina either. He was torn between love and duty. Between protecting his children and confronting an unforgivable act. The harder he tried to maintain balance, The more he was pulled into a storm whose epicenter was a truth revealed too late to save what was once whole. And Carly, who might have celebrated victory, now faces a bitter truth. The truth she helped expose didn't bring justice. It only deepened the damage. She realizes that bringing down Nina didn't win her anything. It only widened the emotional chasm between her and those she loves. Willow grew distant. Drew lost trust. Michael fell into crisis. Everything she thought was right, protecting her grandchildren, preventing Nina's influence, now looks like the very spark that tore everything apart. The aftermath of Nina's exposure isn't a clear punishment. It's a bending of reality. What once felt secure is now fragile. Former allies are now suspicious. Former victims are now criticized for not acting sooner. And Nina, though the root of it all, is no longer the center of fury, but a symbol of a deeper fear, that anyone can hide guilt behind kindness, that everything we trust might be a mask, and that truth, even when revealed, may not be enough to heal. This is no longer just Nina's story. It's the story of reopened wounds, betrayed trust, and a town where everyone is being forced to look inward and ask, if Nina could do this, what else is being hidden? And if truth cannot save us, then who will cause the next disaster? Willow had been in a deep trance since the moment the truth about Nina was revealed. She couldn't believe what she was hearing, that the woman she had reluctantly opened up to, tried to call her mother, had turned out to be the one who had poisoned Drew, the person closest to her. And the important part of the family she had fought so hard to keep. The truth was more than a shock, it was a devastating blow to Willow's soul. Shattering the fragile layers of trust she had painstakingly built through disappointment and hurt. Willow didn't just feel betrayed. She felt cruelly deceived. Lured into a dangerous illusion that Nina could change, could become part of the family. Every hug, every apology, every pleading look from Nina now replayed in her mind like distorted memories, filled with lies. Willow had brushed aside warnings from Carly, from Michael, even from her own insecurities, to give Nina a chance. And now, Carly's revelation had ended all that hope forever. The haunting that Willow was experiencing came not only from Nina's cruel actions, but also from the feeling that she could no longer trust her own intuition. She wondered why she hadn't seen it sooner. She doubted all the relationships around her, not because they were at fault, but because she had let Nina get too deep into her life. Too close to her children. Amelia had called Nina Grandma, Wiley had happily sat on her lap during the holidays. And now, Willow couldn't get that image out of her head. Nor could she bear to know that she had let such a dangerous person so close to her children. For Carly, revealing Nina's crimes wasn't an act of revenge. It was an act of anger built up from years of being hurt, threatened, and pushed to the breaking point. When Carly told the truth, she wasn't looking for glory or thanks. She just wanted to prevent a bigger tragedy. But the price of that revelation was greater than Carly could have imagined, not for herself, but for Willow. Because when Carly told the truth, Willow had nowhere to run, no way to preserve a last good image of Nina. Carly had brought Willow to the truth, but the truth was too cruel for her to accept. In that moment of truth, Nina lost everything. She not only lost Willow's trust, something she'd spent years working to build, but also any chance of moving forward as a family. All her excuses were meaningless. She could cry. She could beg, but no one was willing to listen. Drew was angry, Carly was decisive, Michael was coldly silent, and Willow, the only one who could save everything, turned away. Without saying a word. Nina stood silently in the room where Amelia's laughter had once filled her, where she had imagined birthdays filled with flowers, holidays with a complete family. Now, there was only the sound of the wind blowing through the windows and the cold eyes of those she had called family. No one was on her side anymore. What she had tried to hold on to, even in the wrong ways, now fell like broken glass, reflecting back on the face of a woman who had nothing left to lose. And Willow, despite her pain, knew that she could not go back. Her love for her mother could not be greater than the haunting realization that her mother had once used her dark hand to manipulate her life. She wanted to forgive. But she could no longer. She wanted to cry, but the tears had dried up along with her faith. From now on, every time she sees Nina, if she ever gets the chance, it will no longer be with the eyes of a child searching for connection, but with the eyes of someone who once set her heart on the wrong person. The truth has been revealed. Nina has lost everything. And Willow, along with her entire family, will forever carry that scar as a reminder. Sometimes, not everyone who apologizes deserves forgiveness. And sometimes, the person who hurts the most is the one you expected the most.